Good morning, St. James. It's Thursday, September 14th, and I just wanted to get one more little video out to y'all. And as we're about to enter into the final part of Paul's letters to the Philippians, I just wanted to address a question that I think we should ask ourselves about lots of places in the Bible. But the question I want to ask is, why did Paul write this letter to the Philippians? And of course, there's some obvious answers. He helped to build that church, so he wanted to stay in communication. I think that's like an easy one to go with. He wrote letters to many churches, so this was like a thing that he kind of did. This was something he was probably known for. I would not be surprised to find that there were many other letters to churches that didn't survive or were not reclaimed, especially when thinking about some of the multi-letters, like when you look at First and Second Corinthians, there's probably actually more letters to the Corinthians than what we have. But why specifically to the Philippians? Why while he was in prison? And what's really the purpose of this whole letter? Lots of scholars have lots of things to say about it. There's a couple kind of givens. So let me talk about maybe the two givens that are pretty easy to pinpoint. One was Paul could no longer go visit his churches. He was in prison, so his only real means of communication is through letter writing. Unfortunately, he didn't have a cell phone. He didn't even have you get one phone call like when you're in prison. He didn't have anything like that. His only tool was really writing and really entrusting people to take his writing to the churches. So that's a given. Like, he couldn't visit them. The other reason that's really obvious is found in chapter 2. He talks about Epaphroditus and Epaphroditus being sick and almost like so sick that he could have died. And so, like I said a couple weeks ago, giving some kind of information and actually sending Epaphroditus as his messenger was evidence that he was still alive, that he didn't pass away. So it's kind of like this way of quelling the anxiety that a good, deep friend and mentor did not pass away. Those are your two kind of givens. I want to talk about two other reasons that I think are just as important. The first one has to do with one of those subversive things that he was trying to do. Remember, the Philippians had two major problems that they were dealing with. One was they were not clinging to Christ as much as they were clinging to kind of like religious duties. They became a religious organization and kind of had lost sight of following Christ. And the other one was this presence of division. Okay, I think I had a little glitch there, but this presence of division within the church. Paul knows that there's a problem, and it's not just a problem in the city of Philippi. It's a problem with Christians all over the world during Paul's time. They're trying to cement what it means to be Christian, but there's another voice in almost all of the Christian churches, and that's the Judaic voice. The Judaic voice that's really holding on to the Old Testament, and they're still not sure that Jesus was the Messiah. They believe that Jesus was a prophet. They believe he brought a new teaching. They're on board with that, but they're not exactly convinced that Jesus is the Messiah. And so they're still talking in the framework of the Levitical law. And so in pretty much every church in Paul's time, there are some people who are saying, if you are going to be a Christian, you have to be circumcised. Or if you're going to be a Christian, you have to not eat. You have to forego eating certain foods. Or if you're going to be a Christian, you need to do blank, 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 and blank. So like all these things, whatever it is, the list. Remember, there's like over 600 laws in the Levitical system. And they're saying you have to conform to those laws. And so Paul is trying his best to gently convince everyone that that time is over. And in the letter to the Philippians, he's pretty subversive. He's pretty kind of like undertowing it. In some of the other letters, he's like flat out, this is insanity. This isn't who we are. It's not what we're meant to do. But in the Philippians, he's kind of like, subtly. But at one point, he boldly says that the law is complete, the law is done, and we have Jesus. And so I think it's important to remember that. There's one other reason, and we haven't really touched upon it yet, and we'll get there in more detail next week, but there's one other reason why Paul's writing. The Philippians, above maybe every other church in Paul's life that he's like brought into this world, the Philippians have been helping him financially. They've been sending him food, money, gifts, whatever, to keep him afloat, especially now that he's in prison. You might not know this, but Paul was a bivocational church planter, which is amazing to think about. He was doing this amazing work of bringing about churches in the known world, in the Roman Empire, but he was also a tent maker. And so he did all the things to do to get the cloth, leather, poles, everything together so that people could have tents, which in the desert was really important to have shelters. And so he would make these shelters, and that was how he raised money. He never asked churches to tithe to him or to donate anything to him. He didn't ask for a stipend or a salary. He was working for his money. And that stopped when he got arrested, because when he was put under house arrest and he's just in Rome, he probably was not able to do as much as he used to. He's probably very limited. Getting resources to do his trade were probably very limited. And so he's also writing this letter to the Philippians as like a thank you, as like a token of gratitude, because the Philippians he says nowhere else in Macedonia did they send him anything. But he also kind of implies that no one has been sending him things. And he's also like, hey, I'm fine with that. Like, he wasn't even doing it as like oh, you're doing this and everybody else is not doing it and it's wrong. No, he was more like, you've been doing this, like, even though I didn't even request it. And that's amazing. And so this letter is also just like a token of his intense gratitude that the people of Philippi, the church of Philippi, have been like such a source of his joy. He calls them his joy and his crown, almost saying like that. And I'm hesitant to put words in, but it's almost like he's saying that, it's almost like he's saying that they're his personal best, like his best church, And I'm hesitant to play favorites. We know the Old Testament is full of the damage that comes from playing favorites, but it's almost like he's saying, like, wow, you all have really stepped up above and beyond, and that's amazing. And so these are some reasons. As we're getting into our last chapter, we got 2 more sermons in Philippians. I thought it'd be interesting to just kind of say what it was that he was really doing. I think finally you just got to understand that for Paul, it was very important to just maintain relationships. For Paul, he didn't want to, like, oh, I built this church, but I'm out of here, or like, I've been with you all for 3 years and it's time for me to do different things. Everywhere he went, he really went far to stay connected to the people. I mean, he knew intimately the goings-on of these churches and wanted to continue to offer advice and offer help and offer his friendship. And I think that's really important to realize. All right, that's all about Philippians. I hope you're enjoying our time in this short but beautiful letter. And this coming Sunday, we'll be doing chapter 4, verses 1 through 9. So a little bit shorter of a space, but there's a lot that's going on in there. My camera seems to keep glitching. I apologize. But yeah, there's a lot going on there. And then next Sunday, we'll do verses 10 to the end, I think 10 to 23, where we'll be hearing about Paul's gratitude for their donations to him. All right, I hope you all have a wonderful day. May the peace of God, which surpasses all our understanding, go with you through this day and this week till I see you again.